Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the graveyard shift. I am the last thing in between, you and a drink. So thank you very much for taking the time. My name's Serge Milbank. I'm the co-founder of Confer with. We're a live shopping platform. And I'm going to talk to you today about live shopping, how it's changing Omnichannel, and then taking a bit of a future focus. I thought we'd stay with the theme of the future of digital commerce. And start to take you through that. So first up, I just thought I'd just break straight away and take you through what Confer with is. Confer with is effectively the best way to describe us is a shoppable video call. So we trigger on big retailer websites, we trigger into live video calls, and that triggers onto a video call, but we're connected to e-commerce. So for example, with John Lewis, we ingest all their products, all their pricing, all their inventory, all their videos and images, and we take people into video calls. Now those video calls, you could start to take a customer through an experience that replicates as close as reasonably possible the type of experience that you might have inside a store. So inside a store, you can take them through the product, you can take them through product selection and a range of different sort of pieces throughout the buying process. Now we've been trading for about 3 years, about 3.5 years, thereabouts, and these are our platform averages. So on average, we get a net promoter score of 80. I think if you have a look at a CSAT score, we're about 94 as our average. We convert 23% of calls into sales. On average, revenue improves on an average order value by about 50% as a result of doing a video call. So customers love it, the metrics go up. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create an experience on a website that tries and lifts something very similar to what you might have seen actually inside a store. This last metric's interesting. It's for anyone that really counts the numbers. Any agent that sits on the Confer with platform and does a video call, on average they'll drive about £1,700 per hour of video call. So if they're doing over the course of the day, just multiply that by say an 8-hour day or something like that. So from a metrics perspective, it starts to make sense and starts to make return on investment type things. So that's Confer with. I'll show you a whole bunch of bits and pieces of that in the context of what the talk's about. But what I'm going to talk to you about is how we, as a live commerce platform, has been influenced by 4 big trends. Trend number 1 is we are seeing retail environments changing, and they're fundamentally changing as a result of shifting consumer behaviours. I'm going to just talk to you about a couple of those things. As a result, AI is creeping in. Because people are going into video calls, we can start to bring AI into that experience. And that is used in specifically not to necessarily replace someone doing a video call, but it's to assist the person doing a video call and helping them through the process. Then the 2 fundamental things that are impacting what we're doing right now, and then there's another 2 big areas. One is bandwidth and handsets are improving vastly and quickly. We've all seen our handsets and we've all seen our devices improve, and believe it or not, bandwidth is improving even more than what we're seeing at the moment. And that's opening up things like the metaverse and augmented reality to be able to support more enhanced experiences inside video calls. So I'm going to talk to you about what's happening as a result of those first 2 trends. So if we start with trend 1, which is retail environments. The first thing that's happening inside retail environments is space is being utilised to support omnichannel outcomes. There's always omnichannel budget sitting inside a retailer, and they're starting to change the space to be able to support things that are going on from an omnichannel perspective. What we've seen in our world is they're trying to route video calls onto the shop floor. And interestingly enough, those video calls don't necessarily succeed very well on the shop floor. They're actually better when they're routed outside of the shop floor. But it's an interesting process in the sense that retailers are starting to try and change the environment to support an omnichannel outcome. Conversely, we're seeing retail stores triggering video calls from the retail environment. So someone might be in the retail environment, there's a QR code, they press the QR code, and all of a sudden it goes up into a video call to someone that might be in a contact center, inside a visual contact center, and starts to talk them through the product. So it's about less people actually sitting on the retail floor as well. So those two trends are interesting. Where are we going now? Pardon me. I'm just going to pick up something with John Lewis. So we work with John Lewis, and interestingly, they are routing video calls through to brands. And those brands themselves are actually doing video calls as a result of something triggered on the John Lewis website. So two examples are Sage and Samsung, and the transaction happens on the John Lewis website, but they're using effectively what you'd call a promoter on the shop floor, but they're doing it remotely via video. And so all of a sudden the brands could start to get involved in this experience. Equally, but then you have the actual retailer themselves doing video calls themselves with customers within that environment. That's interesting, and that's using Confer with Connect. That allows brands and retailers to start to work together to be able to start to create these omni-channel experiences that work financially for both parties. Conversely, you then take a brand like Samsung, and Samsung's doing video calls on John Lewis. They're doing video calls on specialist retailers like Hughes, and that list is starting to expand, and they're doing video calls themselves directly. In each of those instances, these teams are doing video calls, and the transaction's happening on John Lewis, or it's happening on Hughes, or it's happening directly on their own website. But it means that the experience is wrapped up inside the website that they're doing. So the retailer still owns the customer, but they're giving access to the brand to be able to support that. And we think that's a fundamental shift. If you have a look at Samsung, they're scaling this quite in an interesting way. And as a result of those video calls, they're getting improved sell-through, they're getting improved understanding of customers, and they're helping drive volume and creating a great experience for consumers. Behind that sits what we refer to internally as super users. And super users, they can be attached to a range of different brands. So the Confer with platform allows for brand ambassadors to be doing calls for multiple types of brands. So this is a bad example. I don't know why we have this, but this might be the same person doing video call for Samsung with the Samsung branding. They might do a L'Occitane call. They might do an M&S call. And that ranges depending on what the demand is. What's interesting about that is it allows brands and retailers to scale their staff to allow that they can start to cope with the demand that you might get from video. And that technology allows businesses to actually really start to go in this, because they can then outsource video calls as a result. So I'll give you an example of a visual experience. This is a brand called Owe, and they're based out of Bologna in Italy. And this is a visual studio that they've set up to do video calls. It's in a warehouse in rural Bologna, and it's not a retail environment. They have everything from their website routing through to this room, and they do video calls from that room. They have multiple cameras, and she has a play table there. You can sort of see she's on a play table. She has a face cam, and she might walk around and pick out a skincare product or a hair care product, and the camera follows her around. When she's in that call, when she's shown and immersed the customer in the product, she then adds it to the basket and uses all the platform features to allow for a purchase to happen. It's an interesting framework here, because if you have a look at an Owe, they've got, I think, 3 retail stores, one in Turin, one in Bologna, one in Paris, and then one in Amsterdam. And so they don't have a massive retail footprint, but they've got a very large online footprint. And they could take them into a retail-like experience, an omni-channel experience, as a result of doing that. And that's a beautiful experience. I've visited that a few times, and it's well worth getting your head around that as a framework. Rather than taking someone into a store, take them into a specialist area where someone can be doing a video call. Pardon me. Next example is Sage Appliances. Sage Appliances they work with someone called Stella Global, and they've got visual studios. So they literally have pods where they do video calls, and they're teaching people how to make coffees. And they're teaching people how to what the relevant elements are to go and purchase a very expensive coffee machine, and work through like that. So what's interesting there is that this is outsourced. So they're an outsourced team that do video calls. They're trained baristas. They're actually, a lot of them are actors, and they're doing video calls as a result of that activity. And I think personally that this is a great example of, if you would outsource it and then you take it into a visual experience that is more cost effective than going into retail, but is very much as a result of going into retail. And it's very helpful, a very good framework. We recently got pulled up as a cool vendor by Gartner, which is quite a complicated thing to get. We had to demonstrate that we were innovating, that we're making a difference to people's numbers, and that we were intriguing the analysts at Gartner. And they, as a result of giving us the cool vendor badge, they flagged that it's their belief that by 2026, anything in live commerce is really going to be driven by one-on-one live video for personalized consultations. And there's a big push to sort of say, actually, live one-on-one video is a means by which that you could communicate with your customers in a cost-effective way and an immersive way that results in happy customers and customers that spend money. So as a result, we think that this is it's a good call to action to start to think about how customers are going to start to interact with brands and how they're going to interact with retailers as a result. Now, if we move on to AI, I'm going to show you something behind the scenes. So what I've shown you historically before is I've shown you what the consumer sees. Behind the scenes, you have expert interfaces or brand ambassador interfaces. And that's supported by machine learning, increasingly supported by AI. And we are helping the brand ambassador to decide what product to show to the customer and what images to show to the customer to help them through whatever the outcome is. Most of the time the outcome is purchasing a product, but it might also be a service outcome. It might also to drive consumer interest and things like that. And this interface is, a lot of thought goes into what should the customer, or what should the brand ambassador be showing next, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of data behind that as well. And the types of feedback we see, all sorts of interesting feedback to sort of say, hey, they were really knowledgeable, they really understood, but you've got to understand that these brand ambassadors are going across tens of thousands of products from time to time. So they have access to a range of different products inside their interfaces. So they can't learn everything. So what we do is we make it simpler for those brand ambassadors to actually understand what it is that they can understand customer needs. And behind it, there's a fair bit of science. So we structure live video calls in very much around the retail selling model. So like in any good retail environment, you walk into a store, you're greeted and you establish some level of rapport. You're asked about your needs. What are you looking for? What are you in the market for? What would you like to buy? What are the specific elements that you need to understand before you can make that decision to buy? You're then given a selection of products to choose from. And that selection is important. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then once when you zero in a product, you're then immersed in a product. In a physical store, you're touching and feeling the product. Inside a video call, we can touch and feel images. So we can move images and watch videos and be guided by an expert about and help them answer their questions to get them to a purchase. And then naturally take to the till. So that's a retail experience. And so the Confer with platform is really effectively a data platform. And we understand every behavior that happens inside a video call. So if we then go into that, if we assume that we've understood needs, and we're going to have a look at selecting products and immersing in products. So if we give an example here, and these are platform stats, so they're across the whole client base around product selection. So here we are, as we have changing products. So you're giving a selection of products, figuratively speaking. We measure NPS as a result of the video call, and we know that in video calls that there's no products are shared, where it's just a video call, it's probably closer to around 50, 60 NPS. The moment you start sharing alternative products, NPS goes up, customer satisfaction goes up. Consumers are enjoying the fact that you're giving them a selection of things to buy, and then you're going to help them get through to the decision that matters to them most. And that's product selection, and that kind of very much makes sense. It's like, well, if this product's not right, then that product's not good. If that product's not right, that's bang on. That's exactly what I need for my needs. That's alternatives and add-ons and product selection. If we then move to imagery, and we track every behavior. So if no images are shared, again, we're in the 50, 60 mark of an NPS. The moment you start sharing images, the moment you touch and feel the product, NPS goes up. And I've only shown you 3 metrics, but naturally that continues to go up to get to a kind of peak. And what customers are liking is you're taking them through the features of that product inside the video call. And as a result, statistically, we worked out that actually if you do these behaviors inside a video call, customers like it more, and believe it or not, all of that's correlated to a conversion rate. So if you remember that 23% conversion rate as an average, the moment these image sharing and product sharing goes up, that conversion rate tends to grow. So as a result, that's all modeled, and that's all, and the interface is they're provided support within those video calls to make that happen. Trend 3, which is then we're getting a bit more future focused now, is actually bandwidth on the consumer side is improving, and if we're here, we've got a long way to go in bandwidth. You can just imagine how much bandwidth you're going to get through to a phone, how much bandwidth you're going to get through to a laptop within that. And naturally, tech providers like myself are going to use that. In those handsets, there's augmented reality available inside those handsets and a range of different things that are available inside handsets to make that happen. So we're utilizing browser video streaming and then APIs to be able to make a video call shoppable. But then more things then start to come through as that bandwidth starts to increase. So as a couple of examples, where does that take us? So if we're going a bit more future focused about what an omni-channel store might look like as we progress into the coming years, with the increased bandwidth, with the increased capabilities, we then have a range of different things that we can be doing. So this first example is a POC we did with L'Occitane in the Middle East. And we teamed up with Imperia, who do meta stores, metaverse stores, etc. And these, you can sort of see these metaverse stores where you can start to browse around the store. And that's all great. Very expensive to put together, beautiful experiences, but we take them to a PDPs and then we take them into a video call as a result of that. So then all of a sudden we're building a beautiful, immersive, metaverse type experience, and then eventually when they get to a product where they need some level of support, we can take them to a video call. Now there's a lot of good arguments to say, oh, can you do all of that in synthesized stuff? And that's a longer debate, so if you want to do that over a glass of wine, I can talk to you about what the implications of doing that from an automated and synthesized basis. But these types of things are viable now. We've done this in POCs already. What is also increasingly available, and it's possible now, is augmented reality. So you can take product images and you can augment them into the video call, and if someone's showing you their room, if they're showing you what their room looks like, you can place a couch in there. If they're showing you what you look like on a, if you're in a beauty environment, you can show what different makeup looks like within that environment there as well. And that augmented reality is possible now. We'd like a little bit more bandwidth for these calls to be able to be successful, and we'd like the cost of the image rendering, but AI will get the image rendering cost down a fair bit, and that becomes a really viable framework in the omnichannel space. What's important here is the consumer is showing you their room, and this happens all the time in a video call. They go, here's my room, let's furnish it. And the moment then you can then start to take augmented reality going through there. So it's all of a sudden you've got the retail environment and the physical home environment, they're starting to mesh from the omnichannel experience there as well. I think the last one is, this is conceptual work, where if you go to full metaverse, and then full into virtual realities, then you can build up an interface where you can be shopping in a far less constrained environment that might be on a handset, etc. It can be very much three-dimensional, and you can take them through video calls within that framework and be shopping in that environment. I wouldn't say you're going to see this in the next 2 years, but I'd certainly say when you start to push out to a 5-year horizon, the omnichannel experience will start to work in that space. If I was to give you 5, second to last slide as well, so that glass of wine, that beer is coming. If I was to give you 5 takeaways of what the impact of that is for digital commerce, is first of all, one-to-one live shopping is giving, it's rich, personalized experiences that you can have that gives tangible outcomes. It's the staffing that happens, and we see this every day. The staffing of video calls is incredibly dynamic. You've got brands doing calls, you've got retailers doing calls, you've got outsourced providers doing calls. We're increasingly seeing gig economy doing calls as a result of that, as long as they're certified in those environments. So the staffing of doing video calls is no longer just routing through to retail store, it's routing through to anyone that's feasible for that to happen. We deal with very large data sets. We've got millions of SKUs on the Confer with platform, and we have to organize them in a way that makes it useful. So AI is very much supporting that in terms of organizing that information and helping to prompt customers or prompt the brand ambassadors to talk about the right things and have a product knowledge that's greater that they can fit inside their head. And there's a range of prompts that have inside those frameworks. We're seeing scalability across retail touch points. We've got a direct to consumer, but if you've got retail partners that you're working with, you can be doing video calls across all of that from the same team. And that's very important there as well. And then bandwidth improvements will just continue to enhance that experience. I think if you have a look at a video experience, that's doing a great job within the constraints of the bandwidth that you have available. And as that bandwidth starts to improve, and we all know it's going to improve, we all know that handsets are going to improve, that experience is just going to get better and better and better. Is it going to replace the retail experience? I doubt it. But will it be an experience that is on par and slightly different to a retail experience? Absolutely. Is it going to be better than an e-commerce experience, just on an e-commerce website? Without question. So it's an interesting area to be working to. Just to conclude it off, more than anything, we're showing off. With the cool vendor framework from Gartner, is their guidance is to be designing live commerce experiences to boost sales and customer satisfaction. Importantly, to differentiate yourself as a brand and as a retailer to everyone else out there. The moment that you can differentiate yourselves by giving an immersive experience that's helpful and successful and viable financially, it will make a massive difference. Thank you very much for your time.